Hello, Buckeye fans. We're back after the Rose Bowl, and fortunately, we're not talking about the offseason quite yet. In fact, we are talking about the Buckeyes in the college football playoff semifinal. Dave Biddle and I, Patrick Murphy, just got done talking with Ryan Day. He had his first press conference since coming back from the Rose Bowl. I think Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian is speaking as we speak. But a long press conference from Coach Day. I thought a lot of good stuff. What just generally, as we normally do, what stood out to you from that?
Coach Day walks out of the Woody right here. We should have brought him. He probably would. He loves Pat and I. He probably came right over. I think he actually does. When we're saying no, but he was very loose. It's like he was funny. I mean, there was actually like a reporter on the Zoom call named Jeremiah Smith, and at first I was like, "Is this like one of those where like Adam Dunn used to call like the Reds radio announcers when they were on like a rain delay and pretend like he was somebody else?" And no, it was just a reporter whose real name is Jeremiah Smith, and he asked a question.
Jeremiah just got on the call, wanted to ask Coach.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I thought it was something like that.
Hey, Coach, I'm looking at film here.
I think I could have gone for 203. How come I only got 187 and 2?
Could you throw it to me more?
Only 7 receptions? Come on. I could have had like at least 10. But there was a reporter named Jeremiah Smith that asked a question about Will Howard, and it was a good question. And Ryan Day stopped and looked and said, the answer was, just got to keep throwing you the ball. So it was funny. So stuff like that. And the reason I'll bring that up is because Coach has been very, very, very serious at press conferences this year. Never rude. Always gave thoughtful answers. Always has been cordial with us. He's really good to deal with. Even during some bad moments this year, he's been like pretty good to deal with. So he's very loose. Now, obviously they were asked, how do you keep this edge? I was going to ask that question, but it didn't get asked. It was the first one out of the hopper once the Zoom part ended. And that's huge because even though they were an underdog to Tennessee, and Patrick had this angle last week, even though they were an underdog to Tennessee, everybody was like doubting Ohio State. Tennessee fans are going to take over the stadium. So Ohio State almost had an underdog mentality coming off the Michigan loss. Everybody chirping. It was almost like they had the underdog mentality. They came out pissed off, right? Urban would have loved that. You want an angry football team. Oregon. Ohio State is the favorite, but they went out there pissed off again because they'd already lost to Oregon. Everybody's picking Oregon. At least the majority of national people were picking Oregon. How do they keep that edge now when everybody's like, oh, Ohio State's now a machine. Michigan was the aberration. They're just destroying everybody. Now they're a 6.5-point favorite, but they're going to the state of Texas to play Texas. I think Ohio State's going to win, but like they have to find, if they can keep that edge, I'm sure they're going to win because they have to find a way to keep that mental edge because I'm a huge believer in the mental side of sports.
Yes.
If they can come out like that focused, that aggressive, that, hey, we're going to just play bleep to the wall and see what happens, I think Texas is going to be in trouble. If Ohio State goes out there like they've been reading their press clippings to use an old term, I might have some trepidation. But, hey, man, 2 down, 2 to go.
Right. Well, and we talked about that after the game and just like when you get to this point, you shouldn't need extra motivation, right? You're 2 games away from a national championship, and that's one of the 3 goals that this team set out to do. They didn't achieve the other 2, but that one is very real now. And so like Emeka Egbuka said, if you can't get yourself up for these games, are you really a competitor? And I think that's a legitimate question. I almost think it's worked out well for them to get the ball first in these first 2 games. They've lost the coin toss.
Yes.
I think getting that, hey, I know Ryan Day is a lot about the middle 8, those 4 minutes before halftime, 4 minutes after halftime. He brought that up today, said he didn't think they did well with that.
That's like the only thing that Oregon did well the entire game, and Ohio State still bludgeoned them. I love them getting the ball first. Go ahead.
I just think if you can get the ball first and have that success that they do, I think it's confidence for everyone. Now, if you came out and got a 3 and out, you got a turnover, I guess we'd do the same. But I think putting those points on the board for this team has been crucial in these playoff games. I don't know if they'll win the coin toss against Texas, but I do wonder, and maybe this is something we can ask Coach Day about down the line. Like, do you consider, hey, if we win, let's get the ball and let's go and try and come out. Let's come out throwing. Let's be accurate and let's move the ball down the field. I mean, what was it? 2 plays?
3 plays, I believe. Okay. No, maybe it was a 2 play. No, you're right. It was 2. It was G. Scott and then Jeremiah. Yeah. No, you're right. 2 plays. Boom. To the house. And then both games so far, they get the ball, they go down, they score, then the defense gets a 3 and out, and then the offense gets the ball back. Actually, this time did they go down and no? There was actually a punt, and then they went and just
they did
scored. So basically, though, I mean, both games, it's like both offense and defense are completely on point. And another thing, and one thing I did ask Coach Day, he said quite famously after the first Oregon game, not like immediately following the game, but they had a week off. We got a chance to meet with him that next Tuesday, so roughly 8, 9, 10 days after the Oregon game, 9 or 10 days after the Oregon game. And he said, in no uncertain terms, we are going to re-engineer our defense. And you're thinking, okay, what the hell does that mean? Well, it means what we've been seeing since then. And he didn't get into specifics about schematics, but he gave a pretty good answer. I'm going to have a story on that. I'll have a story on everything Coach Day said, but probably will lead with that because, man, I mean, to go from not pressuring Dillon Gabriel at all in the first matchup to just pressuring him the entire game, 8 sacks, 5 additional tackles for loss, not all on Dillon Gabriel, but the sacks were all on Dillon Gabriel. It's amazing what the transformation from this defense, and guys that were underperforming, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, are now playing like at an All-American level. I know those awards have already been given out, but Tuimoloau now with 10 sacks on the season, Sawyer with 8, and that's despite the fact that they're getting mugged on every freaking play, and they never call holding on Ohio State, but or on the Ohio State's opponents. But man, I love what I'm seeing on both sides of the ball. If they don't even need to keep necessarily this level. If they can just not drop a lot, they're going to win the whole thing. But they just can't lose their edge. They're playing like the team that we expected them to play all year. It just took till game 13.
Yeah, right. And look, I was talking with some of our Oregon guys after the game because we kind of tried to figure out what the hell happened. And I did say to one of the guys, like, this is the team that everyone expected to see when you had that much talent coming back. You add Caleb Downs, you add some of the other pieces that they did. You bring in Chip Kelly, all this stuff that we talked about all offseason, right? And this was what we thought. Now, doing it with a college team every week is really difficult. I mean, you think about some of the best teams we've seen in recent years, the Alabama teams, some of the Georgia teams. Like, every week wasn't great, but a lot of weeks looked more like this than they did and Ohio State's performances were good most of the year. But this is what they expected. You brought up the pass rush. Coach Day, I thought, made a good point when he was asked about the secondary and like how it's all working together right now. Because there were some sacks and the one that comes to mind specifically was the Caden Curry sack when Dillon Gabriel rolls out and there's just nothing there. And Caden Curry's able to come from the backside and clean it up. Like, this defense is playing. I mean, I think back to 2019. I mean, Ohio State's had good defenses over the years, but they're playing as well as any defense I can remember in Ohio State at this point in time.
For sure. It does remind me a lot of 2019 where I felt like they were the best defense in the country that year. And I thought coming into the playoff that this defense had a chance to carry them. And I talked about that. I still believe they were the number 1 defense in the country. Now I have no doubt they're the number 1 defense in the country, especially the way Knowles is coaching them up.
You wouldn't know that if you listened to the Ole Miss broadcast last night because they kept referring to them as the top defense in the country. And I was like, I don't know about that.
They lie a lot. They also thought they should have been in the playoff. But Coach Day obviously didn't want to get into schematics, but there's certain things that you see. Like, they're using Caleb Downs basically as like a hybrid Mike. What do I mean by that? Well, you can play like basically regular safety, but a lot of times they're cheating him up basically as a Mike linebacker. He can still drop. And what does that allow? That allows Cody Simon and Sonny Styles to turn into just whirling dervishes where they can just do, not do whatever they want. They have to be within, play assignment sound, but it frees them up. And look, Cody Simon's now turned into, the best linebacker Ohio State has had in a long time. I mean, I didn't see that coming. The way he's been playing the last few games, he unbelievably. I mean, and you could point to a lot of different guys. So, but I point to that Caleb Downs, how they've utilized him as kind of like a hybrid Mike has just been beautiful. And then you have Jordan Hancock's kind of like a Swiss Army knife back there. Jermaine Matthews is getting a lot of run now. So you're right. I mean, we're seeing everything. Well, Lathan Ransom just knocking people out of the game. That poor running back. I don't know if you guys realize it wasn't. It was the Lathan Ransom hit knocked him so silly he didn't know where to line up. Jordan James, and they almost said Mariota.
Different.
Gabriel. Yeah, that was 10 years ago. And Gabriel had to go over here, and then he went over there, and then there was motion, and then he had to go back over here, and the guy was woozy because Ransom just lit him up, and then they gave him the ball again, and he ran into the line, and that's when you never saw him again. But that's because he was already basically on a standing 8 count because Lathan Ransom just destroyed him, and they came to hit. It wasn't just Lathan, although we're used to Lathan laying the wood. They were laying the wood the entire game. They did the same thing against Tennessee. Look at that hit Sonny Styles had where that receiver caught the ball and Sonny was waiting for him and just drilled him into the ground. So it's just a different attitude. I mean, the the way the tight ends are blocking, for example. They have more of a tough guy attitude right now, while still focusing on what they do best.
Yeah.
You can have a tough guy attitude. That doesn't mean you got to run into the brick wall every time. I mean, you can be a tough guy, but still like throw the ball to the best wide receiver in the country. So, and the second best freshman, apparently.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We get to see the best freshman, and then also Jeremiah Smith is going to be on the field, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend today, this morning, and just about like why this didn't happen against Michigan, right? Because you're right. This is the toughness that I think Ryan Day wants to see from his team, and this is how you prove it. You do what you do best, and you bring the wood, right? And it is. I get it. It's very frustrating that they weren't able to handle business, but with the way that this playoff has played out, maybe it was better that they didn't go on and play Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. You know, if you win that, you're the number 1 seed. Well, we know all conference champions lost. If you lose, you may still be in it. Penn State's obviously still in things, but
bold move by Penn State to lose the Big Ten championship game, so they'd get the easiest road. And listen, I can't believe that this happened. I wouldn't advise it to do it ever again.
No.
But people are wondering what happened in the Michigan game. Well, now we know. Obviously, Ohio State intentionally lost the Michigan game. I mean, it's obvious. If they played that game 100 times and Ohio State was trying to win, Ohio State would win 100 times. So they intentionally lost the Michigan game just to lure their opponents to sleep, get a little extra rest, make everybody think that they sucked, just to bludgeon everyone in the playoffs. So, hey, that's 3D chess right there by Ryan Day.
Well, and I talked to some guys after the game that said, you never want to lose that game, but they think that they will look back on that as being the catalyst, the motivation to get things right, to be able to go out and win a national championship. We'll see.
Obviously, if they win the national championship, and I never thought this was possible, that loss to Michigan will be the blip of all blips on all radars. Yeah. I mean, that national championship banners hang forever. They're 2 wins away. They're the betting favorite. It's almost even money. It's like plus 110 Ohio State to win the national championship right now, which is insane.
You brought up Coach Day and the Jeremiah Smith question, the question from a reporter named Jeremiah Smith. But I thought once he got into the serious part of the answer about keeping Will Howard's confidence high and the things he needs to do to continue to play at this level, which is as good as we've seen him play all season, was interesting. Just his play and the leadership that he brings as well, which was another thing Coach Day talked about.
Yeah, I mean, and then the one thing that was lacking another thing that was lacking was he was good for 1 or 2 boneheaded plays a game, which we definitely didn't see that against Oregon. But the other thing was he's not really good at throwing the deep ball. When they do complete one, guys are having to stop, and he's not hitting guys in stride. Well, he's been throwing the deep ball well. And you're right, his leadership is just off the charts. That's so important for quarterbacks. I mean, he's got so much experience. Dylan Gabriel's the only one that doesn't think that Will Howard has a lot of experience in college football.
Right.
But Will Howard does have a lot of experience, and you're seeing it, man. I mean, they haven't really broken out Will Howard the runner very much because they really haven't needed to. So, it's kind of what we said coming into the year. Does Will Howard need to be win the Heisman or be in New York as a Heisman finalist for this team to win the national championship? No, but he's got to be good, and he's been good all year. Now he's playing great. And I don't even know if he needs to keep that up. He needs to obviously play well for this team to win. But, I think it's big for him to get his confidence going early. Although he does do a good job of bouncing back when things go awry. But I think, in both the Tennessee game and the Oregon game, he got cooking early, and it was like, good luck. Good luck. Because then he's confident. He's thrown to the best trio of wide receivers in the country. And a lot of respect to this offensive line for what they're doing. Down to, they're basically their 9th starter. Though Luke didn't start the game, but, pseudo.
Key contributor.
Yeah, basically, the 9th guy that's a key contributor for the offensive line all year, which is not ideal, but credit to Justin Fry and the offensive linemen for playing well and giving them time. But, how could you not love what you're seeing out of Will Howard? And it's not just the stats. It's like he's dropping dimes out there. He's putting the ball, perfect. That ball to Emeka, and credit to Emeka. That was a great throw. Great job by the DB, really. Great coverage. Got his hand on it. Emeka somehow caught that with one hand, really twice. Really caught it twice with one hand. But great throw by Will Howard. I mean, he's just putting the ball on the money. And I love how they just came out there Jeremiah Smith is the best player on this entire field. No offense, Caleb Downs, at least the best offensive player on this entire field. And we're going to showcase him the entire game. Well, maybe not the entire, until we get up 34-0. Right. Then we'll back off a little bit.
Yeah, this version of Will Howard is NFL quarterback level. And I think that the issue is Can he do this all the time? He hasn't shown that in his career. I do think Will Howard will be an NFL quarterback, but like where he gets drafted and whatnot.
This is helping.
Yes, exactly. Last thing before we get out of here, and we'll talk about Texas a lot over the next week. Wow, it is just a week away, right?
Isn't it crazy? It's next Friday.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking it was Saturday, and I looked at it today. I'm like, wait a minute, it was the 10th, though. So then I did the math. It's the 3rd plus 7. That's the 10th.
Yep.
No, I joke. But seriously, I thought it was Saturday. But no, it's a week from today, my friends. A week from tonight.
Yeah, and then the first semifinal will be next Thursday.
That's
a
quick turnaround for Notre Dame.
Yes, very much. But just your initial thoughts on this matchup with Texas and what you think going forward here.
I would prefer not to be playing them in the state of Texas, although it's not like you're playing them like in Austin.
Yeah.
But still, I don't like that. I do think Ohio State's got a big matchup advantage the way the Ohio State defensive line and just defense in general is getting after quarterbacks, because Texas offensive line has struggled this year. Now they're a little banged up. They've given up a lot of sacks this year. I believe Texas has given up right around 33 sacks this year. I think Ohio State has only given up 12. For example, Ohio State's much maligned offensive line's given up about 1/3 the amount of sacks that Texas has. So not a good matchup there for Texas. But Texas is known as like an offensive team, right? With Sark and all that. Their defense is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Their front seven especially. So I think
led by the freshman of the year.
Bet the best freshman of all time to ever play football. He must be if he's better than Jeremiah Smith. What a joke. But yeah, man, they've got a really good defense. But if Ohio State can play its B game, they're going to win this game. They just can't play their C game. I think they're going to be fine. Again, I wish this game was in Miami and not Arlington, but c'est la vie.
Well, and look, I think if you're Ohio State, like you had to go through Tennessee, you heard all that, Tennessee fans coming here. You had to go out to the Rose Bowl and play the number 1 seed in a team that already beat you. Now you have to go to Texas to play Texas. We'll see who's in the national championship game if they win. But I think this path, like, if you needed to prove something, it's not like they've gotten an easy path, right? It's not like you can look back on this and be like, well, they lost to Michigan and then they got lucky with some matchups. No, they've had to beat some really good teams. This will be another one in their home state, and we'll be there to cover it. Also, the Quinn Ewers narrative, I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
Coach Day talked about it, but we'll get into that more as we get closer. Dave, thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll have Ryan Day's full press conference on the website here in a little bit. And as Dave mentioned, we'll have stories up all day. So thanks, guys. And we will talk to you soon as we head closer to the Cotton Bowl.